So welcome to our CEED Ask the Expert session on Growth Planning 101 with Justin Hardersen of Live Plan. Before we get started today, I want to acknowledge that we are in Mi'kmahi, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. That goes for me as well as the CEED office and the CEED team. If you're unfamiliar with CEED, we are the Center for Entrepreneurship, Education, and Development. We are a nonprofit that offers a variety of educational programs and supports for entrepreneurs and small business owners across Nova Scotia. My name is Caitlin Soto, and I'm the Marketing and Engagement Coordinator for CEED. I'm very excited to welcome you all today. Just a few housekeeping items. So the session will run from 1 to 2. Please feel free to put any questions you have for Justin or the CEED team in the chat throughout the workshop, or we will have time for a question and answer period at the end. We'll be sharing some helpful tools that Justin will be talking about in an email after the session as well as how you can get in contact with Justin and CEED. Now, without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to Finn here, and he's going to introduce our wonderful speaker for today.
Hey, thank you, Caitlin. So my name is Finn. I'm the Communications Coordinator here at CEED. So Justin is the speaker today. He is the Director of Government and Academic Partnerships at Palo Alto Software, where he works closely with organizations across the country that are incorporating the software Live Plan into their business advising and educational services for entrepreneurs. So through his work with the Live Plan partners, Justin has helped hundreds of entrepreneurs launch and grow their business. So today we're going to be hearing a little bit about Growth Planning 101, and I'm very excited. Thank you all for coming, and thank you, Justin.
Great. Thanks, Finn. And thanks you, CEED, for having me and everybody today for joining. Really excited to give this presentation and to talk about growth planning with you all today. And just really excited to be working with CEED. This is content and training that we love to share that really can help benefit your business. But really, if we love partnering with organizations like CEED because we have an aligned mission in helping people succeed in business. And what we do at LivePlan is we make tools, software, and training and education to help entrepreneurs do this type of planning work that can benefit their businesses. But really, if you're using a good tool and a good system to do this kind of work, and you have a team of people that can help you with this, that's really the powerful combination. So, any connection that you can have with CEED to get access to the awesome, passionate experts that are there to help you with this, that's great. We really can't promote the services and program that CEED offers enough. But today we're here to talk about growth planning. So again, my name is Justin Hardersen. I'm with LivePlan. We make a software to support this kind of work. And we'll talk about growth planning today. And I just want to mention that, we build tools to facilitate this type of planning and to make it easier. That's our goal. But you can do this work with any tool. Really, what I want to talk about today and emphasize is the process of growth planning as something that you can tailor to your business, apply to your business in a short period of time that can start giving you some benefits right away. So that's what we want to focus on. And, I'm on the LivePlan team and we make the software, and I'm going to show some examples today, and they're going to be done in the software. But I just want to emphasize that, really the focus of today is on this process, and it can be done with any tool or system that really works for you. Okay, so this is a bit of an agenda. I'm going to talk about kind of the basics of growth planning, and it's broken down into 4 steps. So we'll cover each of those steps in pretty good detail. I have some slides that I'll go through. I'll switch to our software to kind of show you how this might come together, and then kind of touch on, okay, once you've kind of got this process implemented, what do you do next? What are some ways that you can leverage the growth plan that you have to help you manage your business? Okay, so just a basic introduction of what growth planning is, and essentially this is business planning. That's what growth planning is, but the the word business plan has a little bit of a stigma to it and some misnomers about what it is and how useful it is. And I think that the reason for that is because a lot of people, when they think of the word business plan, they think about kind of the old school traditional business plan where you sit down, you do tons of research, you write this big long document that nobody's probably going to read, and then you save it on your computer and you never look at it again. So that's really kind of the old school business planning that we're trying to get away from, that has really proven to not be the best way to do this work, and introduce a new, more flexible and more effective way to do business planning for your business. And we call it growth planning because it's really, we're trying to take the emphasis off of the finished document of a business plan and put it more on the process and the behavior of planning that really helps move your business forward. And that might turn into a business plan that you generate if somebody asks you for one, but the focus of it is really on growth. It's moving you from where you're at today, regardless of where that is, whether it's an idea, a validated idea, a funded business, hiring employees, managing an existing business. Wherever you're at, it's kind of meeting you in that process and helping you come up with a roadmap to get to the next step. So that's what growth planning is. That's what we're going to be talking about and focusing on today. And that's what we've built LivePlan and other tools to support. So breaking this down into the 4-step process, kind of how we're going to go through this today is starting with the plan. So the growth planning starts with putting together some kind of plan, taking your vision, your strategy, your goals, what you know about your existing business, research that you're doing, and putting that all together into a comprehensive plan. Doesn't need to be a 50-page professional business plan document. So we'll kind of show some different versions of how that can come together. But you want to start by just kind of writing down that strategy, getting a plan in place. And then the next step is developing a financial forecast that the plan supports. And the reason why forecasts are so helpful is because they're very specific. Numbers are really easy to write down and then track and measure against, use as metrics and key performance indicators for your business and track against those. So you want to have a plan and you want to build a forecast that supports the plan and make sure that your plan supports the forecast, that they work together. And then that's where kind of traditional business planning would normally stop. You write the plan, you do your financial forecast, you give it to somebody, and then you never look at it again. So really what makes this growth planning process work is that it is a cyclical process. After you have your plan and your forecast that supports it, you need to take the time to review that on a regular basis and evaluate how did things go? How did reality map onto the plan and the forecast that I built? And then by using that evaluation process, you can see where you may have missed targets, where things are going off track from your plan, and then you can refine things to get back to that. You might refine your plan, or you might refine what you're doing with your business, but you're always making sure that you're kind of driving your business to align with your plan that was built based off of your goals. And this process can really help you stay focused on what those goals are, always be looking a little bit into the future and being proactive with the opportunities for your business instead of just reacting to things that are happening with your business as you go, which is really easy to kind of get into that cycle. All right, and I forgot to mention this, but as I'm going through the beginning here, I'd love if you can hop in the chat and just let me know maybe any fact about your business. I'd love to know kind of what stage you're at, if you're a startup, if you're ongoing business, how long you've been in business, and then maybe what industry you're in. And I'll kind of be looking at that. So as I'm going through my examples in LivePlan, that'll help me kind of make sure that the way that I'm talking about the forecast and things like that, maybe it'll be more relevant to your business. So I'd love to hear who's on the call, what stage your business is at, what industry you're in. If you get a chance to put that into the chat, and then I'll keep an eye on that as well for any relevant questions that come up as we're going through. Okay, so how does growth planning help your business? Really just giving you confidence primarily in the financial viability of your business, having a forecast that you can look at, you can test out scenarios and have a clear understanding of how the numbers are working for your business, what they need to look like to support your goals, and whether or not you're on track to that gives you a lot of confidence moving forward. It helps you make good decisions based on real numbers and data. And it really just gives you a good solid roadmap that you can use as you're managing things here. Okay. All right. So we had somebody in the chat let me know that they're an artist painting and expecting to start the business in the new year. So that's great. Thank you for sharing that. And this is a good stage and good position to be in to do some good planning that can help you get to that stage where you've turned this passion into a profitable, successful business. Okay, so building the plan. So the plan that we're going to talk about today is something that you can put into place quickly. It's Thursday. You could have a one-page plan if you don't have one already. You could have a good, solid one-page plan for your business by the end of the day, really. So this one-page plan is designed to be something that you can quickly put together and quickly update and improve and iterate on over time. So that's what we're going to talk about. I'm going to use what we call the pitch and live plan, which is a one-page business plan format, to show you the components that you might include in a one-page business plan, and then how that can get turned into a more lender-ready type business plan if that's something you need in the future. But this is all about capturing your strategy in kind of one quick bullet point version of a business plan that can guide you forward. And then you have this question of, okay, do you need a formal business plan? And the analogy that our founder used, which I think is a good way to think about this, for a growth-oriented plan and versus a formal business plan, is like it's like dressing a kid up to go to prom. Like when that kid goes to school every day, it doesn't make sense for them to wear a tuxedo. They're going to wear their street clothes because that's what's functional. But every once in a while, you got a prom, you got to dress this kid up and send him to prom. And that's kind of what, how you should think about your business plan is day to day. It should be something that is operationally useful, helpful, easy to put together, easy to update. May not be the prettiest thing in the world, but it's useful to you and your team and the folks that you're working with. And then if you need a formal business plan, you have the foundation already built. You just got to dress it up a little bit, download that document and share it to check that box and accomplish that goal. Most often, the reason why you might need a formal business plan is because you need funding or financing for your business. You need to show somebody how you're going to use that capital to grow the business, to increase your profitability, to pay back the loan. And you need to have a story in your plan that supports that and is convincing, and it aligns with your forecast. So you might need a formal business plan for that. That's kind of the main reason why you might need to build off of this one-page plan. But there are other reasons as well. If you ever want to sell the business, if you are trying to bring on a partner and you really need a good alignment, and to convince them to join the business venture, those are different reasons why you might need a more of a formal plan. And I'll show you how you can kind of turn this into that. So with that, switch away from the slides here and get into live plan. And so this is the pitch page. This is an example of what a one-page business plan could look like and how we approach this with our tool. And after this webinar, there's going to be a follow-up email with some resources. So we actually have a PDF version of this pitch, one-page business plan with some instructions in there. And that's a free resource that you can use. You can put together a plan and use that as a starting point if you don't want to use live plan for the work, or there's lots of other templates out there that are similar to this. So the basic concept that we have here in the pitch in live plan is we start with the headline, which is basically just a description of your business. It's if somebody was going to read one sentence to understand the value proposition that you offer, your business, what makes your business unique, that's where this one sentence goes. So it's really trying to communicate as much as possible about your business in a really limited number of characters, which is a great way to just think about how you communicate about your business. What is really essential? You're going to have to kind of pick and choose the words that you want to use in here to give a really compelling headline. And this is something that you can workshop and continue to improve as you go. So a good way to approach, writing the headline for your business is to write something down, to say it to somebody, and to see what questions they have. Does it make sense to them? Do they understand what you're trying to do? Is there any confusion about what your business is? And then use that feedback to then workshop and improve this headline. And then after I go through these, I'll show you what a finished pitch looks like to kind of give you an idea of how that all comes together. One of the things that we use in LivePlan is we've embraced some of the new AI tools that are out there that tend to really help with writing tasks, especially if you are not a person who's enthusiastic about writing, which I would put myself in that category. Writing tasks now feel like it gives me flashbacks to my college days of writing term papers. And so these tools are really helpful, especially if you're kind of having that blank page panic, giving suggestions to kind of get you thinking creatively about how you want to communicate about your business. So the thing that we do to help with that is there's a part of LivePlan where we can tell this template basically what kind of business we're operating, and we can put in some information here. So in this example, this is an e-bike store in Eugene, Oregon. That's where we're based, that sells and rents e-bikes, and then a little bit of information about what kind of what our focus is, what kind of business we want to be, and kind of what makes us unique as an e-bike company in Eugene. So filling that in here, that's going to help when I'm doing my pitch, because it's going to allow this tool to make suggestions for how I might want to approach some of these questions. So this is giving me some example headlines, and I may not have to use these, but if I find one that's close to what I want to say about my business, I can plug it in and then I can make my updates from there. So using some of these AI tools can be a good way for you to get some ideas in writing, and then you're kind of using the process of elimination and editing things rather than feeling like you have to produce this content on your own. So they can be helpful. So I'll use this as kind of a way to look through like what problem statements we might want to use here. So if we look at the format of this pitch page, let me go back here. Basically, we're putting our headline in here, and then we're focusing on the opportunity of the business. And this is a good place to start with your one-page plan. And starting with any business plan, we really like to start with a focus on the problem that your business is solving. In order to have a sustainable, viable business, you need to have real problems that your target customers are having, that you're hyper-focused on, that you have a very clear understanding of. You have solutions that directly address those problems, and they're problems that are causing enough pain for your target customers that they want to pay to solve the problem. So really, the problem is kind of the nucleus of this whole planning process, to make sure that there's a real opportunity here and that you're positioned to successfully to address that. So that's kind of the starting point, and then we move on to the solution. What does your business actually do? What are you providing and offering that solves this problem for your target customers? Who are your target customers? How many of them are out there? And then who else is doing the same type of thing? Who might be a competitor to you, or what are where else are your potential customers going to solve this problem now? And what it positions you to be to get that business, to be unique or to offer something more compelling than what the competitors are doing. If you need funding, you can plug that into your one-page plan and put a description of what you're going to use that funding for. And then the plan, the one-page plan gets a little more tactical. How do you actually sell the product? What are your sales channels? Are you selling through a website? Are you selling through Etsy or program like that? Do you have a storefront where you're making sales? how are you getting your product into the hand of your customers? And then what are you doing to get in front of your customers? How are you marketing the product, building awareness, and driving people toward what you're offering? And then the financial projections are just going to come in from what you do in the forecast. So these don't need to be super detailed in this one-page plan, but it's kind of summarizing, how the financials are going to work. What are your major revenue streams? What are the big things that you're going to have to spend money on? And then milestones. What's coming up that you need to focus on? And when is it going to happen? Who's going to do it? And how are you going to execute on this plan that you have? And then lastly here, and really importantly, is who's involved. What are if it's just you starting out, what are the unique skill sets that you have, your background, what makes you uniquely positioned to execute on this opportunity that you have, and who else might you work with? Are there any partnerships that you need to secure to make this business work? Do you have any current partnerships that are really compelling to help you execute on this opportunity? And you can put all of that here in this one-page plan. And at least in this tool, you can use some AI to kind of help you put these things together. So for sake of time, I'm not going to go through all the components here. I'll show you what a finished one-page plan looks like for a business, but I'll just go through a quick example here of thinking about the problems that your business is solving and how you're solving it. So we'll look at some of the suggestions here based on our business model and kind of pick out okay, what seems like a real problem statement and what is something else. So this first one right here. So Eugene lacks sufficient e-bike retail options. That seems like a problem that we can address. So I'll add that here. And then this next one is easy e-bike access facilitates carbon-free transport. So that's great, and that might be true, but it's not really a problem statement. That's more of a solution. The e-bike here is the solution to carbon, too much carbon in the atmosphere, essentially. So your problem statement for something like this might be, the pollution in Eugene, Oregon, and the world is causing too much carbon in the atmosphere, and so that's the problem statement. You can stop right there. So that's one helpful thing to think about your problem statement is there's a tendency to want to pull your solution in there, but that's what the next section's for. So you can look at these again, kind of use this AI prompting to get ideas, say, yeah, carbon is something I'm concerned about. It's definitely a problem that my company addresses. So I'm gonna make a problem statement out of this instead of this kind of more solution-oriented statement. And you can kind of add these to your plan and then workshop them and then go on from there. So now we have some problem statements in here. And then for the solution, this is where you get to talk about what you offer. And one important thing to think about as you're writing your solution statement is, one, it needs to be in a language that is understandable for your target market or whoever's the target person who might be reading this plan that's not you. So, you want to kind of avoid using industry jargon and things like that in here and really just focus on, how you're solving that problem in language that your target audience is going to understand. And it's helpful to connect your solution statements directly to the problem statements that you have. So, if our solution is e-bikes available for sale and rental to all, I can add that. And it kind of aligns with the first problem statement that I have. So the problem is there's not sufficient e-bike rental options. Our solution is, we're making that available. We're offering e-bikes for sale and rental, and that's solving the problem. So if you can connect your solution statements to your problem statements in a way that directly aligns, that's going to be useful, and that's going to make this pitch, this one-page plan, more effective, especially if you're sharing it with somebody to make them interested in your business. So that's an example of how this one-page plan comes together. Like I said, we've kind of built a tool to help build it. There's that free PDF that's going to go out after this that you can use to get started on a one-page plan. And then if we switch to this example here, this is an example of just a finished pitch. I'll give you an idea of what you might kind of end up with here that can help you build this and put it together. So this is what the finished pitch looks like for this kind of health and wellness oriented business. So we have our headline here. We have the problem solution that we're stating. We've clearly defined our target market and even quantified it a little bit to understand how big this market is, how many people are, are we solving this problem for? What are the competitors? How is our solution different or better? How much funding do we need to make this business work or to get to the next stage or level that we need to be at? What are we going to spend it on? And then getting more tactical. How do we actually sell our product? What are we doing for marketing to communicate what our solution to the target market? What are the major revenue streams for the business and our major costs? And if we want to put some milestones into what we're focusing on next, we can put that in. And then who's involved? And what are their qualifications, and then who are we going to work with to make this happen? So this is an idea of just a one-page business plan. And if you're using a good template, you already have expertise in your industry, in your business. Hopefully you could put this together in about an hour and at least have a draft of a one-page plan that you can build on and start iterating from. The other advantage of having that one-page plan is that now it's much easier if you need to produce a longer, more formal document. In our software, we have a plan section for that to kind of take what you've done in the pitch and build on it and turn it into a more professional plan that you can download and give to somebody. And again, using these AI tools, it makes it really easy if you kind of have the nucleus to build off of it without having to do a lot of writing or English work and worrying about grammar and things like that. You can really just focus on your strategy, telling the story of your business, getting the ideas that are in your head into a written format, and doing research to make sure that you have a good understanding of what the market and what the opportunity is. Okay, so that is all about the one-page plan. And let me go back to the slides here and share these. All right, and like I said, you can turn that into more of a formal plan. So now we're going to talk about the forecast. How do you start putting some numbers to this plan that you created? And what does a forecast do for you? So essentially, it gives you that specific roadmap that you can now track against. And as you're getting your forecast started, it's helpful to use a tool if you're not an Excel person or if you don't have an accounting background. If you can, get access to an expert on the CEED team, go through a program where you can learn a little bit more about the financials and use tools that aren't, that don't require an existing knowledge of accounting. It can really help you get through this, and really to be an effective entrepreneur, an effective business owner, you don't need to have a CPA accountant level understanding of your numbers, but you do need to have a firm grasp on what the numbers mean for your business and how you can make decisions using those. So that's what this tool is built to help you create. You're not going to finish with that accountant level knowledge of how a financial statement comes together, but you're going to understand how the financial statements for your business connect to your business model and how to use that information to make good decisions as the business owner, because ultimately you're the one who is making those decisions for the business. So one way to help with this is if you're up and running business and you have you're using an accounting software to build your forecast, you can kind of start with those categories that you have set up in your accounting to think about how you might want to do your forecasting. With our tool, we'll actually connect to QuickBooks Online and help you pull in those categories automatically. But if you don't have your accounting set up already, that's totally fine. You can still build a really good initial forecast. It's all about just kind of thinking about how you want to structure that and put it together, and then starting to make some guesses about your numbers. So I'll give you a quick example of kind of how to get started building a forecast. I'm going to use our e-bike company. Then I'm going to use the forecasting tool in LivePlan to kind of show how this comes together. So like I mentioned, we'll ask, hey, do you have some numbers in your accounting software that you want to pull in to get started from? If not, we'll walk you through how to put this together. And we like to start with just estimating what are your revenue streams going to be. And in a similar fashion to using AI tools to help you build your pitch and write the business plan, they can also help to put together the forecasting here. So as you're adding revenue streams, you can see suggestions here. This is something you can use with kind of any AI model out there. It's just, hey, this is what kind of business I am. What are some common revenue streams that I might have? So this does a few things. In this tool, it helps you quickly get those forecast categories built into your forecast, so you can start guessing on numbers. So I told this that I was selling e-bikes and I'm renting e-bikes, so I'm definitely going to add those categories. But it can also help maybe expand your thinking a little bit about what additional streams you might want to explore for your business and whether or not you want to pursue those. So now you're kind of using the process of elimination to build your forecast rather than thinking through, off the top of your head, what you might want to put in here. So you might say, yeah, I understand, other e-bike stores might do maintenance and repair. We don't have a person to do that. That's not something we want to focus on. So we're not going to add that. But we'll probably have accessories and tours seems interesting. We haven't really fully fleshed that out, but maybe we'll just add it to the forecast and we can start doing some research. And if it's not something we want to do, we can just remove it. So it's a quick way to kind of get your categories set up and thinking about what those major revenue streams are. Where's the bulk of your revenue going to come from? And then what are the big things that you're going to be spending money on? That's going to get you, 80% through this forecast. And then, generally the template will help you figure out things and do the math for things like taxes and financing and, repaying loans and things like that. But the bulk of the intelligence that you're going to be putting in here is going to be making your sales assumptions, figuring out what your expenses are going to be, how much they might be, and then using this model to start looking at profitability and cash flow and things like that. And just start thinking about if you need funding, how much do you need, when do you need it, and what does that do to your financial model, and making sure that you can be profitable based on the guesses you're putting in here. So that's kind of the framework that we use, using those suggestions, and then you actually get in here and do your sales and put your assumptions in here. So I'll just give you a quick preview of kind of how we would put together a revenue stream using this model. And basically, we're looking at a forecast that is 3 years long, and we're looking at the next 24 months to do monthly guesses at what our sales are going to be. And this is helping us break it down into units. So if you can break your forecast down a little bit into the components there, it can help make this forecast more valuable. So in this example, we're looking at not just how much revenue we're earning from e-bike sales each month, but we're actually looking at, okay, well, how many e-bike units are we selling? So we can just think about what those sales figures are. So whenever you're planning on opening the doors and starting this revenue stream, you can start putting in your guesses here. And a good way to think about the forecast is just like the plan. You can treat this like educated guesses. These are assumptions that you can go out and test. You can see how accurate they were. You can come back and update those. So hopefully it makes it easy to start guessing at these numbers as you're getting started, especially if you're a startup. You don't have a history to go off of for your sales. So you're using all the information you have to make guesses, and just understand that those guesses might be wrong, but it's the process of making the guess, seeing what happened, and looking at the variance there. That's what is useful in this process. So as you're doing your sales forecasting, think about seasonality, think about when things might be busier, when they might be slower. There's some built-in tools here to help you think about what your kind of year over year growth might look like. And you can kind of build that sales curve for your business and start getting some numbers and some targets and some assumptions in here of what you think those sales are going to look like. And then with this model, we can just plug in what we're selling the product for. And by doing that, we can start to see our forecasts come together. Now we have our revenue. We're starting to put together our profit and loss statements. We're starting to understand what the bottom line looks like for our business. And as we add all of our revenue streams, estimate all of our expenses, we can start to get a pretty clear picture of how things look from a profitability standpoint and a cash standpoint. So in this model, we try to make it really easy so that as you make changes and add things to the forecast, you can always see how those changes are impacting your bottom line and what the bottom line looks like for the business to understand what kind of decisions you might want to make. So to finish this out, you would go through the similar process. So thinking about your revenue streams, and then we like to move on to direct costs next. And so what is it going to cost for each unit that you sell? What is it costing you for raw materials or for labor involved in that process? So you can start to understand, for each unit that you sell, what are you spending on that? And then once you have included your overhead expenses, you start to get a picture of what your break even looks like for the business. And then again, I'll switch back to this populated plan here, this health and wellness business, just to give you a picture of what a fully built out forecast. So this is an up and running business. They're somewhat complex. They have quite a few different revenue streams that they offer, and they don't have a lot of direct costs because they're a kind of a gym model. But a lot of their expenses are in personnel, and so they've kind of built out this whole model, and now they can look through, at the next 3 years and see clearly what their projected profitability is and how much cash they're projected to have in the bank each month. And it's a really powerful model to use to manage the business and to work off of. So you're not going to start with something probably that complex at first, but if you start by just putting in those sales projections, start to try to figure out what your direct costs are, then your overhead expenses, you're going to have, be a long way to developing a really useful financial forecast. And the key to that forecast is that you go back and update it and you look at it. So that's what we're going to talk about next. But if you've gone through all the work to build the forecast, and maybe you've done that because somebody did ask you for a business plan and you had to put your projections in there. Once you get to that point where you have the numbers in a financial model that makes sense to you, then you have a really powerful and useful tool for the business. So, kind of the next step here is to look at how do you leverage that to actually make it useful. So that process is setting up a review. So setting aside some time, inviting the right stakeholders to a monthly or quarterly meeting where you're purposefully reviewing the plan, reviewing the forecast, looking at what actually happened. And what you're looking for are, variances. So you're looking for, a difference between the number, the assumption, the target that you put into your forecast, and what actually happened. And what are those variances? What are those differences? How far apart are those two numbers? And what do they mean? What do they mean in terms of how you manage your business? And what do they mean in terms of how you might want to change your forecast? So the best way to kick off this process is once you have a one-page plan, once you have some kind of forecast built that supports the plan, schedule that plan review meeting, put it as a recurring calendar event, invite the right stakeholders, connect with any business advisors you might be working with, get them involved in the process, and really be purposeful about doing this ongoing review. And if it's on the calendar, you're much more likely to do it. And so what you're looking for are variances, and those might be positive variances. You might overachieve on your sales goals. You might underspend what you thought you were going to spend. And that's good. It's generally is better than negative variances, but it still gives you good information. You still might want to use that to refine your forecast as you go. But part of that process of looking for those variances is trying to uncover and think about why did that happen? If we overachieved, which revenue streams did we overachieve on, and why? Why did we do better than we thought we were going to do? Or if we underachieved, uncovering the why and looking at the why behind these numbers is what helps you start to dig in and actually use this information to change things and steer and direct your business toward that plan that's taking you to your goals. So to give you an idea of what this review might look like, I'll go back to Live Plan again. There's, you don't have to use this exact format or framework to do this review, but it's a helpful way to think about it. So here we have this business, we have a forecast built, and in this scenario, we're connected to our accounting software. So it's really easy for us to get this number of what actually happened because that's in our accounting and it just pulls automatically in here. And so, so we can look at this type of analysis to say, okay, what did we think was going to happen? In our forecast for the same time period, our sales target was $367,000. What actually happened from our accounting was $339,000, or 8% lower than what we thought was going to happen. But since we're doing this review on an ongoing basis, we can look back further and say, well, we've grown since that last time period, and year over year for the same time period, we're actually doing quite a bit better than we were last year. So all of that is giving you context to understand your numbers and what they mean for the business and start to think about what changes or refinements you might want to make, again, either to your forecasted targets or to how you're managing the business. And this type of view helps you really break down and understand, get to the why behind the numbers. If we underachieved on our sales forecast, which revenue streams were we overestimating? Which ones were we underestimating? And maybe we can get some information here on what we should be focusing on in the business that's really going to drive the revenue and the results for our company. And same thing for expenses. If we overspent on our expenses, where did we overspend? Where did we go over budget? And what does that mean? Do we need to reevaluate our budget here? So that's kind of an idea of how to do that review process. Basically, just now that you have a very clear financial roadmap in the forecast, you have the opportunity to go back and look at the actual numbers, compare those side by side, and start to get a clear picture of where those variances occur, and start to think about the why behind those numbers. Okay, so the last step of the process here is to do that refining. So when might you want to refine your forecast or to change things? And these are some of the top reasons. Your assumptions were just off. You made your best guess, and then you were able to find the actual answer in the accounting, and your assumptions were off. So you need to adjust those, or maybe your business model changes. That's a really important time to just go back to your model at any time. And if you're going to make a major change, make sure your plan incorporates that change. And if you have a forecast, you can test the numbers with some of those changes before they happen. You might have a new expense that pops up. Maybe you just simply made a mistake. Something else I would add on here is if something happens in the broader economic or business environment that impacts your business, some major trends, things like that, that's a time to quickly go back and refine and change that model. Obviously, COVID is a good example of that. These big shifts in the world economy that impact your business, or your local economy that impact your business, that you want to make sure you are accounting for in your forecast and in your plan, so that you can be best positioned to either take advantage of opportunities or manage your business in a way that can get you through any rough periods. All right, so just looking at the cadence here, it's a good idea to do this monthly. I think, getting started, if that seems like too much or too often, then you can set a quarterly task to do this. And so, it's the new year. So a lot of people are doing this in the new year, and it's challenging if you haven't looked at your plan for a whole year, and then you look at it, it's going to feel like all of the assumptions there are outdated, and you may as well just kind of, make a whole new plan at that point. But if you're keeping up on a regular basis, it's like anything else. it's much easier. So that annual review doesn't feel like a big, scary task. It's really just, kind of that more purposeful, let's take a look at the year ahead, but we've been updating our forecast all year, so we don't need to make any huge changes. Okay, so looking at kind of after we've done this 4-step process, we've built our plan, we've built a forecast that supports it. We have this review process set up where we're looking at it each month. We're using that information to make improvements and refine things. What do we do next? What are some other things that we can do to really leverage this and use it? And one of the things that our tool is built to help with is looking at what if scenarios. So once you have your forecast built here, and this might be representative of your goals or your best guess at what's going to happen, you can take that forecast and you can create a new scenario and you can copy the one that you're working in. I think this is the one we're looking at. And you might do a best case scenario here. And maybe this is something that that motivates you for your business. Like maybe you're motivated, really seeing what the potential is, what the numbers could look like, where you want to get in terms of income from the business, or growing to where you can hire people or make more of an impact. Whatever that motivating factor is, building a forecast that supports it and allowing yourself to say, yeah, these seem like pretty aggressive goals, but I'm going to build that forecast that supports it, so I know exactly what needs to happen for me to hit this best case scenario. That can be a really useful activity. And then also, if you tend to naturally be an optimistic thinking person, and you want to take a moment to kind of put on your pessimistic hat and just say, okay, well, what if I am being overly optimistic? What if things don't go quite as well as the way I've kind of modeled them out in this forecast? What is the bare minimum kind of that I can do and still have this business survive and be viable? So then you can make that, create another copy and call that the worst case scenario, and just say, okay, if sales are down more than I expect them to be, how does it look? Am I still profitable? Do I still look good? Do I need to start, if things trend that way, do I need to start looking at financing options or changing the business? And sometimes just having that worst case scenario can actually give you, a lot of confidence in the business, because exactly kind of where those are. You have the best case scenario for your dream target goals, and then you have that worst case scenario to say, okay, things could be a lot worse than that, and we're still okay, we're still good to go. And having both of those along with your best guess or your working forecast can be really powerful. So those are two obvious scenarios that you can build using your financial model and work from. But there might be others. Really, like any big change, if you're thinking, well, it seems like we could, expand a little bit, maybe hire somebody. If you just want to see, hey, can we afford this addition to our payroll? Build a scenario, model that out, that hire, add that person in your personnel, plug in what their salary would be, and then look at the numbers and see if it still makes sense, and start to think about, what extra revenue they might bring to the business, and you can kind of model that out. So really, any big change or decision, you can use financial scenarios to explore those and just get a really clear picture of what might happen if you go that route or make that change in your business. All right, and I think that's pretty much wrapped up the content here. Yeah, if you're using that kind of dashboard view to do the plan versus actual review, then anything you can use to generate reports to share that information with your team or people who are working with you can be helpful to help them understand what the target is, what you're all striving for, and how you are trending on that, and what maybe changes might need to be made to keep in a positive direction there. That can be useful. Then again, just really thinking of that monthly plan review meeting as a good goal to get to, and really the cornerstone of this whole process, the thing that makes it work. Do a plan today. Don't worry about getting everything perfect. Put your best guess in there, and just know that this monthly review meeting is going to happen, and this plan is just going to become more useful over time as you continue to refine and improve it. And you'll put yourself in a position where if somebody asks you for a business plan at any point, if you need that financing for your business, you have most of everything that you need right here in your growth plan. You just need to pull it together, dress it up, and give it to the person who is interested in seeing that plan and looking at your forecast.